people tend to assume that our lives are sad. We are defined by tragedies in our lives, the medical emergencies. But it really is more than that. It's more than just what you see. If you choose to believe that someone comes into our life with a purpose and everyone has ways that we can all teach each other, then I think you would look at our lives as different, not just with tragedy, not just look at us with pity, but also to know that we are empowered in many ways actually.
Hello and welcome back to Open House, where every conversation opens a new perspective. I'm your host, Durga. Today is a Mother's Day special. Today's guest is a woman whose strength, love, and resilience embody what it truly means to be a mother. Noor Hasni's journey is one of quiet courage, navigating the everyday realities of raising a child with a disability, while holding on to hope, patience, and grace. Welcome to Open House, Hasni. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Durga.
Thank you. Now, Hasni, let's begin with, how are you? How have you been, and what has life been for you so far?
I've been good. I think it's really learning how to take one moment at a time. Life right now, I think if I were to describe it, it feels like walking a tightrope. There's this me constantly balancing between feeling tired, exhaustion, and also having that bit of grace for my child, for myself, and for my family. I think if I were to say our days are deeply shaped by Dahlea's care needs, my days as well. And I think if I want to sum it up, life right now really feels like deeply human, really full of surrender, full of the small moments and joys if I choose to look for it, and really full of love and courage.
That's really nice to hear that you still find the positive in whatever you're going through. Now, Hasni, I know you're a mom and you're a caregiver, right? But what I would like to know is, who is Noor Hasni?
I am someone who's really very unsure about a lot of things. I think a lot of people think that the moment I walk into clinics or consultation rooms, I think people might assume that I am composed or calm, grounded most of the time, but I am actually uncertain about a lot of things. Like at nights, I would go to sleep thinking about what were the questions that I asked, the thoughts that I have. Sometimes I would question myself, is this even right to think about things? What am I doing? Did I fulfill Dahlea's days correctly, or did I complete my tasks? But I'm also learning how to really juggle all my roles, but also making space for myself to feel happy, finding joy in the small moments again. Yeah, that's me beyond the mother and caregiving.
Right. Now, you mentioned uncertainties, right? And that's your Instagram handle as well, right? I mean, everyone might feel that I also go through uncertainties, right? But before we start talking about, going into details about Dahlea and yourself, maybe if you could share a little bit about, the uncertainty that you have felt as a mother so far.
I think living with a child with complex medical needs and a rare condition, especially being the only child in Singapore with this diagnosis, a lot of uncertainties came into mind. I think as a mother, every day you think about what it looks like for my child in the future. For me as a mother, it's about thinking about how is she going to participate as who she is. What are people thinking about her as a child, as a human, right? So if really thinking about uncertainty in a typical day can look like, if I'm alone, if Dahlea goes into an unresponsive state, for example, I would be thinking, okay, where is my emergency bag? How do I retrieve it while being here by my child? Where's my phone? So all the time it's about thinking about what's going to happen next. What can I do? Who's with me? How can I be of the best mother or the person or caregiver to Dahlea.
Now, let's go on to Dahlea, right? Could you tell us a little bit about her and also perhaps the medical condition that she has? Yeah.
Dahlea is 7 years old this year. She's a brilliant, bright girl. She's a child born normal, but when she was, I think in the early infancy stage, that was when I noticed signs that she's probably not on the path of a typically developing child. So we first got her diagnosis as global developmental delay. That was when I was fully ready to get her the supports and the interventions needed for her to grow. And then when she was about 4 or 5 years old, she was confirmed to have a rare disease. It's a blood disorder. It's called Congenital Methemoglobinemia Type II. It's where your body doesn't have enough oxygen. So it's more of a methemoglobin where it doesn't pass and deliver enough oxygen to the different parts of your body. And it impedes growth, particularly in the brain, the way your organs function and all. So she's the only child in Singapore right now with these diagnoses. And I think there's not enough reported cases right now around worldwide. So to get the kinds of support system worldwide to know what's going on, how it looks like for Dahlea may not be clear as of now.
Because the treatments available or the support
Yes.
available is not like, say, as wide
Wide.
as other diagnosed
Yes.
illnesses, right? Now, you mentioned that you noticed that she was not hitting certain developmental milestones. What were some of the milestones, for those who may not know what a child typically is?
So I think the first signs that I noticed about her was that she was constantly stretching, twisting her limbs. So when she's placed in a baby cot, I would lie down next to her, trying to soothe her by singing nursery rhymes. She would constantly be uncomfortable going into movements like this, extending her legs and all. And then she would cry. Every night, it was difficult to get her to sleep, or even nap times was difficult. So at first, I thought she was a colic baby. I wanted to go to a chiropractor, to see alternative opinions. There were other signs that was spotted by the doctors, but it wasn't flagged up to us as of yet. So only when I went to the pediatric and then I told them of all the concerns that I have as a mother. And then they started saying that there's a port wine stain above her eyebrow or near her eye. And she has a misalignment in the eye. So it's called strabismus, where her eye doesn't align. So that's when they asked us to go to a neurologist to get MRI scan and the eye specialist to see her. Back then, I was working with very young infants, and I knew that there are certain things, if they can't take the milk that we're giving properly, I knew that something was amiss. So I went to see the pediatrician straight and told her all about it. The thing that stayed with me when we saw her was that before we left the room, she said, a mother's instinct is always right. So she told me not to feel bad about coming in, to just rant it all out. And she said that to always follow our feelings. Yes, correct. Yeah,
That's right.
So,
and I was just about to say that, you didn't wait, for things to happen. You took action as a mother, and there's just something told you about, the situation. Now, Hasni, if I were to ask you, what went through your mind, right, when you first learned of Dahlea's diagnosis?
for me, I think when I first got to know her diagnosis as global developmental delay, I wasn't feeling anything particularly negative, or like I didn't feel sad, but I walked out feeling like, okay, what's going to be the next thing that I need to do? And I was very clear I need to look for interventions for support. The first thing was about finances, because I knew it's not going to be cheap also. And then we walked out, we were sitting down, and then I called my mother, and then I went back to work actually.
After the appointment,
yes,
okay.
Yeah, I went back to work. So my principal back then brought me to the room to ask me about how it went and all, because everybody knew it was a great support system at work back then. So she asked me if I'm okay to still stay on at work. When she asked me that, I broke down. So I broke down and I told her I cannot. I think I need time to sit with my feelings. So I went home, cried it out, told my mother. I think everything was just very uncertain at that point in time. In 2022, when I finally discovered about her rare blood disorder, was when I was alone at the ward. the doctor walked in. She was admitted for just bluish nails and all.
Right. So this is a couple of months later.
Yeah,
is
a
it?
couple of years later.
Oh, so the
Yes.
disorder was diagnosed many years later.
Correct, yeah. So I was sitting by her bedside, and then the doctor walked in and then said that, oh, we finally have good news. But I felt so upset when I heard that she said, I finally have good news. We finally have an answer. And then she told me about the possibility of her having that rare blood disorder, but they needed to send her bloods for confirmation and all that. When she left, I didn't have time to process my feelings, so I just went through. I texted my siblings, and then finally, when my husband came back from work, we went down. You know, KKH has Heavenly Wang. That little cafe. So we went to one of the benches at the side. I just cried. I cried. I think it was very loud, the cries, and I couldn't keep it in because I didn't know what to expect, what to do, because what does it mean to have a blood disorder? What kinds of treatments are available out there? The first thing I think about was the lifespan as well. How much time do I have with her? And how is her future going to look like? We went home after that. While doing the laundry, I was just crying. So it's really, I think, if I were to describe it, it's a full body grief. Felt like the ground was opening up. Yeah.
Could you explain, like, now that you mentioned earlier on, it's like grief.
Yes.
Right? It's interesting that you use that word, right? And usually we use the word grief for someone who's, passed on and stuff like that. You also mentioned that lifespan of Dahlea. Are those the same things that, you still worry about today?
Yes, up till today. I think for me, myself, and I also have read some how mothers are also feeling about their journey with their children who has complex medical needs. So at least there's this anticipatory grief that you don't know what's going to happen, and you knew that things are going to look different, and death is always around the topic of conversations or about the things that we think about. And I think for me, the grief is also about the kinds of life that I wanted or planned or dreamed of, the life that I hoped for my child to have. So that's the kind of grief that I usually think about.
So as a mother, what dreams did you have?
I mean, I got married and I wanted to be a mother so much. And I think because of what I've been doing so for so long, that I've worked with very young children, I knew very sure that I wanted my child to have a carefree, a joyful childhood, and being that mother who wants to show up for the child, who want to be there with her, and knowing that I can be that person who she can come back to lean on, to just talk to if she needs comfort, which I think I'm already doing right now with Dahlea, but it just looks different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Hasni, I have to ask, given this situation that you found yourself in, right? But have you ever felt, like how when you talk about grief, there's like 5 stages that people go through, right? Did you ever feel anger? Like, like have you questioned, like, God, oh, why me? Why my child?
Not so much. I think more of sadness. But recently, I felt so much anger, especially because, so we have had a couple of hospitalizations, and Dahlea has been unwell for a very long time, since early January. So the hospitalizations made me so angry because there was no visible progress. Throughout the journey, Dahlea has had episodes where she falls ill and unwell, and somehow she gets back up. But this time around, it takes a really long time, and that anger seeps in and makes me second doubt about the kinds of things that I'm doing for Dahlea. But also maybe because I think that I was also nearing to the point of feeling a bit more exhausted than usual. So that's when I feel that I think I need to tap out for a bit. So it's a lot of different things that make up the anger, more than just grief for the whole entire thing, but it's really about what is it that I can do about the situation right now.
Right now, how do you balance it all and, overcome this anger? And, like you said, you felt exhausted sometimes, as I think anyone would, right? Any mother, especially in your situation. So what do you do to perk yourself up and tell yourself, I've got this. Yeah.
Again, I think our typical day is deeply shaped by her caregiving needs, right? So it's how I respond to things, but I try to sleep in moments where I can still focus on myself. So work makes me feel good, the parts where I still get to be myself, to do what I love to do. So in the morning when she's sleeping in a little more, I will weave in a bit of like personal work. I must make sure my house chores get
Are
done.
done.
Yeah, because I spend a lot of time at home with her. So I just want the home setting to be comfortable enough for both of us. I write a lot, some published, some not, because I think writing helps me find clarity and sifts through the pain and the
It's very
difficult
cathartic,
things.
yeah.
Yes, yeah. When things get very, very stressful, I would do a little bit more prayers, really grounding myself into what this means for me and all that. But apart from that, if it's a shared moment with Dahlea, stressful time, but I cannot have her away from me, it would be really sharing the calm that we have. So if she needs a soothing lullaby, I'll make sure I play something soothing that helps me also.
I
So
see.
that's how I
You
learn
manage
these
day to
things.
day depending on her
Yes.
caregiving
We
needs.
can't afford like self-care for a very long period of time. Yeah.
Right. Now, what has Dahlea taught you about the perspective of life?
A lot. I think she changed me in beautiful ways. The way I look at love, the way I look at patience, the way I look at life itself. I think I used to be very focused in work, in the dreams and the ambitions that I have as a person. But with Dahlea, it's really about taking a step back, slowing down, even looking at love as not just something that we feel, something that is sentimental, but it's more than that. It's like a force that runs deeper. Like it gives you the drive to do things and to keep doing it even when you are in pain. If I look at life itself, there's also full of patience. And I think I've learned how to be patient with her, patient with the people around me, with myself. And it's really a practice to do every day, to not wait for things to fall into place or to be fixed, but to find that peace in the unknown. Yeah.
Now, what's one thing that when you think of Dahlea that makes you smile?
The one thing that I love doing with her is the comfort naps that I giving to her. So right up till now, she's 7 years old, she's outgrowing my lap, but I'm still holding her in my lap in the afternoons. So that's when we share that moment where I can feel that she's leaning on me. That's the one thing right now I would think of, is to really to hold her, because when she fell ill for a very long time, I couldn't hold her the way I was holding her. She would flop, or she would just go into survival mode where she's just fighting her own muscles and body.
I see.
Yeah, so it's very uncomfortable. So for a very long time, I was just crying to my husband saying that I cannot hold her. I couldn't give her the comfort that I used to. Yeah, but right now, she's getting better. So
You're
recently,
able to.
yes, I'm back to that comfort naps that I share with her.
Right. What would you say are some of the things that you've had to give up in your life as an individual, as Hasni?
One of the things that I think I have to let go is really the work that I used to pour so much of myself into. It has to take a back seat right now. The dreams that I've had to further my studies, for example, I have to trust the process and making sure that it's on a pause right now. Sacrifices, in the past, I used to think about it as choosing one thing over another, but right now it's really about staying grounded in the kinds of life that I am already in. And I don't focus on what I have to let go or what I'm losing on, but really about what is possible here right now in this reality of mine.
Do you feel resentful sometimes?
Yes, sometimes I think I wish for the life that I can still work or still have the time to do the things that I used to love. But at the end of the day, when I go back to sleep, I'll think about all the things that happen in the day and the feelings that I go through. And I think about how right now there's a different kind of fulfillment, different kind of presence. And I think that's worth everything
With
that
everything
I've
that
let
you're
go.
doing.
Yeah.
Right. Have there been moments where you felt maybe alone or burnt out?
Alone, yes, many. Because I'm doing the caregiving tasks and the roles that I carry usually on my own, if especially my husband has to be away for work, because it's just the two of us. Burnout, I wouldn't say I've reached that stage, but I would know the signs nearing crash. And I will try not to reach burnout because I can't afford to. I think Dahlea needs me, and I just don't want to reach that stage yet. So I think self-awareness is very important for me.
Now, if I were to, ask you this, right? Everyone says mothers are strong. I think for me, I think mothers are some of the strongest people. I know you take on a lot, but I think strength comes at a cost. And what has that been for you?
I think it's more of trying to understand that in strength itself, there is always moments where we feel vulnerable. And I think that vulnerability itself makes us a stronger person. So for example, if I feel like I'm breaking down, if I don't know what to do and how even a medical procedure is going to turn out, that moment I feel very weak. But I can feel what I feel, but how I want it to turn out to be or what I want to do with that feeling makes me that stronger person, I feel, to be able to bounce back. So strong is not just what you see, and I hope people don't assume that strength looks like one way, or
Comes in many different forms.
Yes, many different forms. And I think especially we don't invalidate or disregard someone's strength if it doesn't look like the way you deem it to be.
That's right. That's really nice. Yeah. Now, speaking of strength, I know you're doing everything in your power to help Dahlea, but have you ever felt at any point in time as a mom that you were not doing enough for her, that you constantly have to figure out a way to make her feel more comfortable?
A lot of times, actually. I think, for example, if she's on a school break, I'll be asking myself, am I stimulating her enough? Am I doing what the teachers have been doing with her in school? So I'm also wondering whether I'm speaking up enough for her, if my voice is loud enough, if I'm advocating enough. But yeah, I think it's also about finding that small little moments, that quiet moments sometimes, to just sit by when she's very settled and all, and I think this is enough. Just my love for her. Yeah, even when things get hard for her, she knows that I'm here for her. Yeah, I think that's
Is
enough.
Dahlea communicative? Is she able to?
She communicates through her gestures, or she would shift her gaze to people when they call her name. She makes sounds, but she doesn't talk. She's not speaking yet.
Right. And does that bother you at times? Because other parents might have their child saying, "Mommy, I love you," or maybe they give the mom a hug, or at least they have their child yelling at them or throwing a tantrum. So does that bother you, or do you feel like you wish you had that?
I don't think it bothered me. I think I'm just taking her as who she is, because she's just unique. She's just Dahlea.
Right. Now, in terms of having a child with disability, I think aside to you being the caregiver, I think one of the biggest thing is the support system.
Yeah.
Right. Now, who has been the greatest support system for you, and could you share a little bit more about how that is actually important?
I would say the biggest support system is my husband. I think he's my anchor, because he's also the indispensable other caregiver that can care for Dahlea. We are both tired, very stretched, but we are so committed to it. Similarly to my family, who's always been there, and especially during the times when I'm feeling so unsure, they are there, and they don't have to verbally say to me that, tell us what you need, but they would just show up in ways that they can. So my parents are both getting older, and also sometimes they can't be there with us at the hospitals for a very long period of time. But on nights when I get to be home and then my husband will be at the hospital, I would see them at the door with food. Yeah. And then my sister sometimes would deliver food that she cooked from home. And the little things like how they pack the cutleries, for example, the thoughtful ways of how they prepare food. And usually as caregivers, we don't really have a table for us to eat. So the cutleries are prepared, and how the containers can be on our laps, and then we can just gobble it up while attending to Dahlea. So those are some thoughtful ways that I think the support system have showed up, that they think about the little details, how it can help us. And I think it's very helpful because it gets us by, although they don't know how much of an impact they make, but these are very, very meaningful. My friends, they slide in messages every now and then. They send prayers. If they can show up, they would just come by. They know what kind of food that I need, and they know that I wouldn't enjoy mealtime, so they would just grab me sandwiches, my favorite coffee to get by the day. Or sometimes they bring books for me to
read at the
with
hospital.
Yes. So these are some of the little things that the support system have.
Right. Now, going through this journey at this moment, what are some misconceptions that you would like to clear?
I think people tend to assume that our lives are sad. We are defined by tragedies in our lives, the medical emergencies. But it really is more than that. It's more than just what you see. If you choose to believe that someone comes into our life with a purpose, and everyone has ways that we can all teach each other, then I think you would look at our lives as different, not just with tragedy, not just look at us with pity, but also to know that we are empowered in many ways, actually. Yeah.
As a caregiver, as a mother, as a family.
As a family, yes.
Yes, right. Now, Mother's Day is coming up soon, right? Now, and Mother's Day can bring up emotions, right? Mothers feel joy. They're like, oh, what. So what does Mother's Day mean for you?
I think Mother's Day, I would say it's both celebrating the small joys, the big joys, but it's also holding space for myself as a mother who have dreams and things that she has to let go. And I think even on the hardest days, Mother's Day is about me reminding myself that yes, there are challenging times, but I'm also doing this work that I do as a mother and a caregiver with the fullest of heart.
I know this is a long shot, but if I could get you to maybe imagine, right? What do you think Dahlea would say to you on Mother's Day?
Knowing the person she is, because she's always grounding me, she would say, Mama, you're okay. You're doing okay, and you will be okay.
That's what she'll say to you. And what would you say to her?
I would thank her. I would tell her that her life matters, that she's changed me in many, many beautiful ways, and that, and that I'm honored to be her mother. I wouldn't change a thing about her.
At all. Now, imagine if Dahlia's listening to this episode one day, maybe when she's a teenager, when she's an adult. It's like, what would you want her to remember about what you shared?
I would want her to know that my love for her is like no other. That all the tired, the frustrating moments are worth it. I want her to know that she's a beautiful person as who she is. I want her to feel that way. And I want her to feel the love that I have for her, for who she is right now, and for the person she is becoming.
That's very beautiful, and I hope she gets to see this one day. Yeah? Now, what would you share with other mothers out there who may be walking a similar journey as you? Like, what advice would you have for them, or words of encouragement?
I would say to all the mothers who are walking similar journey with me, that I see them. Even during the invisible moments that they are doing the hard, heavy work that no one sees. And I think the caregiving role that we take on, the work that we do, it's more than just acts of service. It's a constant attunement to the needs of others, right? I think it draws a lot on our capacity to love even through pain, that mental agility, or the emotional depth that we have for ourselves. And I think more than that, this all happens behind closed doors, but it carries weight and meaning. And I think I said yes to this podcast really as a way to raise awareness about the things that we do behind closed doors. But I think it's also me honoring the work of all that we do as caregivers and mothers, not just mine. And it's a way of me to pay it forward also to the people who have been quietly sending me messages, offering
Helping you.
presents and all. And I think sometimes care can simply mean me too, and also telling the truth.
Right, that's really beautiful, and I really hope that mothers in all shapes and form understand that the work that they do leaves a mark on their children, and not just their children, because you're raising your children for the future as well, right? To contribute to society. Now, how would you, this Mother's Day, right? How would you describe motherhood today?
Motherhood is a lot of things. I think we are constantly trying to meet the demands or trying to see how best we can grow our children so that they can thrive in today's world, especially with the challenging times ahead and all. But again, I hope that it stays with mothers out there, no matter the circumstances that they are in, that they don't forget to be the person who they are. Yes, we have so many things to worry about, to be uncertain about, but it's also important for us to look for ourselves and to look for the little things that matter in the here and now.
Right. Now, before we go, Hasni, why do you feel it's important, to share the message that you're sharing?
Throughout my whole journey of caregiving and all, I've always been trying to speak up for Dahlea. And hopefully it somehow resonates with all other mothers out there. A lot of times I think we focus on trying to make it work for our children. But really, I think at the end of it all, I really want to see every child, like Dahlea or not, whoever they are, to be held with dignity, to be really granted agency, and to be welcomed with belonging wherever they are.
All right. And what immediate change would you want to see in society, to support and help children with disability?
I think it's a lot to do with mindset, how it looks like. I think Singapore is working towards it. Inclusion, yes, means designing environment where it's accessible for our children, for people with mobility and assistive devices. But it also means building and designing systems rooted in compassion for one another, really, for humankind. And then I would really also think about how we want to educate hearts and minds to make space for representation, for how diversity look like, to also show up with intention. And for the society to know that we want people to engage with our children and not speak around them. Yeah.
Right. I think that's a very powerful takeaway, right? Because, when we speak of children with disability, people, or even children, right? Toddlers or, young children, that's a very powerful thing that you shared, that we speak not to them, but around them. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Hasni. I think that was very insightful, and thank you for taking the time to share your journey with us.
Thank you.
Before we go, we've got a small gift for you. We got you some flowers.
Thank you.
So it's just a small Mother's Day gift, and I hope you like it.
Thank
All right.
you.
And so we've come to the end of the episode again. Thank you once again. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of Open House. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it and leave suggestions in the comments for future guests, as well as follow us on our socials for more updates. Until next time, wishing everyone a very happy Mother's Day.